Hello, Nikki. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. I am curious what you are more interested in, gold pants or Brandon Ayuk?
I had a feeling those would be the two topics. I'm currently more interested in the gold pants because I'm trying to write a story on it and not mess up. But, over the past 2 days, I would say it's at this point, it's been evenly split between those two topics, which is, in the grand scheme of things, pretty great when you think about what it was 2 years ago.
Sure.
We have made it so far.
Let's start with the gold pants. We were kind of playing a game. I think it's just a cool step to bring something back that fans enjoy, but
Mhm.
there will be rampant speculation about what the gold pants means by keyboard conspiracy theorists.
Mm.
What, if anything, have you heard of a reaction, and what are you expecting to hear?
I mean, so far I haven't seen a whole lot, and from what I have seen, it's been mostly positive. It does seem like the gold pants are generally, correct me if I'm wrong, you know the history of this team much more than I do, but it does seem like fans have been lobbying for a return of the gold pants for quite some time. Um, so it doesn't really surprise me given what ownership has said from day one. And I was told this was like a full team decision, wasn't made by any one person. But they have talked about some of a lot of their own nostalgia with the team and
Yeah.
going to games at RFK Stadium as fans, and what they remember seeing and how they want to kind of bring the franchise back to where it was in its heyday. And that doesn't mean changing its name or bringing back a controversial name or logo or anything of that nature, but it does mean they would probably look to find ways like this to kind of draw from its history. So I like it. I think it's a good way to do it. I would suspect it's not the last, tweak to a uniform that they make. Now there are NFL rules on how many big changes you can. Yeah. The fact that they're a brand new ownership team gives them a little bit more leeway than most other teams. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a positive thing. I haven't seen too many wild conspiracy theories, so I'm sure they're coming.
Oh, they're coming.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
They're definitely
can't wait.
coming.
it's positive. It's a easy small step too, is one of the things that I think
Yeah.
kind of gets forgotten. Like, hey, people like these, why not bring them back? And I
Yeah.
think one thing that's a positive with the new ownership group is I think where the old regime both had to like get things past get Dan's approval, which was often wavering with the wind, but then also try to establish that they were like firmly in charge and that they wouldn't go back and forth. Like if you remember,
Yeah.
when they announced that they're going to finally honor Bobby Mitchell, they did it right. They made the announcement in like July for a September game, and there was lots of buildup, and it was done right, right? And then when they announced the Sean Taylor thing with 3 days notice, people flipped out, and the right move at that moment would be to just, hey, we're going to try this again later. Thanks for the feedback, but they couldn't because they had to feel like they were, firm in what they were getting done. And I feel like this new group doesn't have any of that baggage.
No. I think they will have the longest, best honeymoon period of any new ownership group, probably in sports for a long while, just because they are not the group of the past. Whether that's fair or not, it is
Right.
reality. So yeah, and I think there's no direct comparison to the NFL. The NFL is a different animal. Just because you've had other sports franchises doesn't mean sports when you like buy an NFL team. It's just completely different. The attention, the scrutiny, the how lucrative these teams are. Every part of it is just so different. But I think some of the things that they experience as sport team owners in the past help them here. And part of that is just the general decision making and sort of, how fans might react. And I do think that they do understand the importance of history with this team. And I felt like history was lost quite a bit in 2020 through like 2022. I felt like there wasn't enough recognition of it, and there wasn't enough awareness of it. Even though they had folks in the building, like I think when you have somebody like Doug Williams in the building, like how can you not
at least
pick his brain and yes, use him as he's an invaluable resource.
I mean,
so I think that's a good thing about this group.
But I ask this question though. I understand you do stuff to please the fan, and that makes sense. But eventually, you guys will just start winning. And I think that's the ultimate thing because, like, I'm hearing about the gold pants, and based off of me coming here in 1990, I'm still trying to wonder when the gold pants were the around when the heyday was going on. Because I know in the 80s and the 90s, late 80s and 90s, they weren't wearing gold pants often. We wore the gold pants like in 90 something when they had that throwback game when we had those pants with no stars, no stripes on them, and the helmet that had nothing on it.
I remember that.
I remember that. But other than that, it was burgundy and gold. I mean, white and burgundy all the time.
Yep. It was like right up till 78 when the gold pants were really and then they kind of moved away from it, and then they brought it back in like special events, and then back in 2010 for Shanny, and then out again because they sucked. And but yeah, I agree. I mean, it'll always come back to that. You can make little fixes and changes here and there, and that's honestly where I come back to with the name. I still think if they win with this name, if they win a title with this game, people will be okay with it. But if you keep going 4-13, of course they're going to hate it.
Yeah. It's funny too because Bruce Allen was one that brought the gold pants back under with Shanahan, and
I know I just used a Bruce Allen quote in the story, and it feels very odd.
Oh boy,
I feel lo and behold, that's where we're at.
JP get to look at Bruce every day, Nikki.
for young people, like if you're 25. You probably don't even realize that like John Riggins didn't wear yellow pants. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you equate like Robert and Kirk with the glory days.
Half of them probably don't know who John Riggins is if they just 20-something.
That's true. All right, let's turn to the other topic du jour. Because frankly, I think the gold pants are they're cool, they look good, and give them more options. Like I'm cool with it. I'd rather those than the black ones, frankly. The black ones have no sense of history. Brandon Aiyuk just refuses to stop posting things. The latest post was, Brian and I have talked about it kind of at length, that we think a little too much, posting the Commanders practice photo to his TikTok page. There's no way that the brass in Ashburn is thrilled about this. There's just no way. What was your reaction when you saw it and kind of the 36 hours or whatever since?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I think it's immaturity on both players' part. I know players obviously share this stuff with friends in the league. There's no way teams can really police that. I mean, I guess there is. They can track what they're looking at on their playbooks and everything. But guys are going to do this. I don't think Jaden should have shared that. I know they're close friends. Okay, you live and learn, right? But I do feel like Brandon Aiyuk, and it was when he was on the Ryan Clark's podcast, The Pivot, and they asked him, what is it like? Every day people are talking about you and your contract. And he seemed to really love that. And that just was like, I get it, sort of an ego strike, whatever. But like that seems to be his primary goal, not, and I don't want to, I've never talked to him. I don't want to speak for him. It is what it is. And, every player should get what they deserve. I firmly believe that. But I feel like he knows exactly what he's doing. He knows he's trolling, and people are just feeding into it. And to me, it's immaturity. Like, you want the contract, fine, play professional, get your deal. Definitely fight for what you deserve and keep it moving. I find this to be a little childish, and I don't know how other teams are looking at it. If I were another GM, to me, I'd view it as, do we have trust issues here? Do we need to worry about that? And that to me would only detract from your ultimate goal of getting the most money possible.
I worry only because he's bringing somebody else into it. If it was just him, his reputation, his whatever, cool. But when you bring somebody else in and you make people start to speculate about another guy, that's when the problem starts. And I think in that situation, Jaden is going to have to grow up a little quicker. If you're going to keep that friend around, you need to be able to grow up quick enough. Because one thing about me and my friends, and they'll tell you, I was the name, and when you walk around, you're not going to act a damn fool around me. You can do that when you're by yourself. You're not going to do it when you're with me. You know, you got to figure out a way to police it a little bit. And if they're going to remain friends, hey, bro, we got to have some parameters here. You have to not show stuff that I show you. Because that's putting me in a bad light. People are questioning me now. That would become a problem.
No, I agree with you. I mean, that's the onus is on Jaden. If he feels like it's taking away from his own reputation and his rapport with the team, then he needs to, step up and say something to make it's on him to not let himself get sucked into that.
Mm-hmm.
But
more beyond, beyond the immaturity, selfishness, whatever the descriptions are for Aiyuk's actions. Do you? I anyway don't think a trade is happening. I think there maybe was a time around the draft where it was discussed. But I think
but it's not happening now. And that
Peters has been so clear that he's building through the draft. They're not going to, mortgage capital now. Plus, the Niners need Aiyuk. The Niners want to win a Super Bowl. So I feel like so much of this is just so extra, so superfluous when nothing's actually going to happen.
No, I agree with you completely. It's silly. It's annoying. Can we find something else to talk about on Twitter? Is that really it?
I think that's fair. I will give you one.
That or Magic Johnson's workout videos on his yacht. That's where we're at right now.
We talked about this morning. Do you think Austin Ekeler is still a top 20 running back in the NFL?
Top 20?
Top 20.
Assuming, good health. Maybe. I don't think he is what he was 2-3 years ago. That's for sure. But top 20, maybe. I always think, it's like any player. It always kind of depends on their health and how he'll be used in this offense.
And it comes down to health. Because if he's not healthy, he won't have the usage. If he's healthy, he have the usage.
Right.
And if he can just do the things he's done over his career, he's effective in the red zone.
It was only 2 years ago. 2022, he had 18 touchdowns.
But he had injuries after that, and I think the injuries speak volumes.
Yeah. And for a player that size, a running back period to take the hits he does, you log some serious miles. I feel like, the rate at which you log miles as a running back is so much, it's so much worse than, a lot of the other skill positions because of the hits you take. But that's not based. I haven't looked at it. That's just my assumption. I think he can be, especially with this group, because I think just with their lack of receiver depth, I think there's a big opportunity for him just to get more production in the pass game. So I think he's in a really good spot. It's just, health. Truly.
Sure. I agree, and I think they have a good plan there. I think if you go back and look at Kingsbury's offenses with Arizona, the best, I think they went 11-5 in a year where I think it was James Conner and Chase Edmonds. Between the two of them accounted for 2,000 yards from scrimmage total. I think a timeshare will work here with the players they've put together. Nicki, there was another thing I wanted to talk to you about before we let you go. We're talking with our friend Nicki Jhabvala here from the Washington Post. You can follow her at Nicki, Nicki Jhabvala, Jhabvala. The draft stuff. Brian and I had heard they were looking to get the NFL draft here in Washington for 26 because that would be the 250th anniversary of the United States. For whatever reason, it got pushed back a year. Now they're looking at 27. I know you had an article maybe last week kind of about where it is. I think DC wants it. The NFL wants it here. The vistas, the visuals of being on the National Mall could be really pretty dope. But like anything, there's challenges.
Yes. And the biggest one being that the National Mall is managed by the National Park Service. I mean, you're dealing with federal agencies instead of a city that can just, either through a city council or whatever, it can just, decide its own how it wants to handle things. You're going through the federal government to arrange these things, and there are restrictions on commercialization on the mall, and what you can sell, can't sell, what types of vendors you can have, if you can have alcohol, all types of things. So these are things that, for an event of that size, it takes a lot of planning. To me, the biggest issue, just in looking at some of the things that have been discussed about it so far, is the National Park Service doesn't accept permit applications for special events more than a year out. And the NFL likes to decide draft sites 2 years out. I mean, 2026 was awarded to Pittsburgh. And you're right, DC, they did talk about 26 or 27. The NFL ultimately went with Pittsburgh for 26. So now DC is firmly trying for 27. But, we're talking more than 2 years out for the planning, and MPS won't commit.
But see, that's the thing about it, though. All these things they have in place, they have adjustments to it. Yeah. And I think that the ultimate thing is, as much as the NFL loves notoriety, DC loves notoriety too.
Yeah.
And I think this could be a win-win for both.
I do too. I think it could be a win for the team, for the city, for the league. I mean, I know DC is viewed economically, financially, business-wise as a massive market for the league. They want DC to do well. It's good for all the owners. They want this market to be back to what it was. It's obviously good for the team. To me, if they get a draft here, it signals that the league views this ownership group, as really having a strong positive impact. Like, they really believe it's back on track. Because DC did try to get the draft a few years ago, and then it ended up in Detroit. And I think you look at the numbers the draft it's putting up. I mean, average 12.1 million viewers. People love watching Roger Goodell announce names. What was it? 775,000 people flooded Detroit. I mean, imagine what that brings to DC. It would, huge numbers. Of course, DC and many other cities want this.
Yeah, but just to take it one step further, and perhaps Landfill needs to play the X-Files theme. If you're trying to get the city to come up with, I don't know, $700 million to build a new stadium on federal land,
might want to help them make some money.
Might help a lot if you're like, we got an event that could bring, 300,000 people to town for 4 nights. How much money does the city make off that?
They bring more than 300,000. It might bring over 1 million people here, and they're dropping dollars in your place.
I'm just saying, you wonder perhaps if the league slow plays this thing to figure out how the stadium's looking, and it all kind of goes hand in hand.
Think about all the stuff that Detroit was dealing with before they got this Super Bowl.
Yeah.
They didn't expect it to be as big as it was in Detroit.
The draft.
But look how, the draft and how it broke out.
Right.
So you think DC wouldn't get that level? Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think they do huge numbers. Huge.
And I think that would really help in a motivation to get a stadium. I feel like the timing of everything could kind of work out. We'll have to see. I mean, it's one of the overarching problems of living in our fair city is that the city ain't in control of enough, right? Like, these federal carpetbaggers get to be in charge of things. But I can rant about that for a long time. What's your off-season grade for the Commanders as of today, Nicki?
Off-season grade, just looking at everything on paper. Yeah. I mean, I thought that I gave them a pretty decent grade last year, so take this for what it's worth. I mean, I give them a B plus, A minus. I mean, I thought I like a lot of the changes they made. I like the coaching staff. I like the front office changes. I like what they did in the draft and free agency. I like their approach, how they just have a general plan for not just the short-term future, but long-term. They obviously can't fix it all, though, and there's still a ton of work to do. Left tackle being a big one.
Dude, what's weird is I'm happier about the left tackle situation with Coleman. I'm at a B, I think. I think they threw a lot of Band-Aids on positions with 1-year contracts for veterans, which I like. I would really like to know what they knew about Johnny Newton's foot. Because if you didn't know he needed another one, and now he does, and the track record of second-round picks here, and that doesn't fall on these guys, but it still happened for a team that needs a lot of help.
I think Johnny Newton, you roll that dice because that dude upside can be something special.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mitch. I mean, that dude's a stud.
Sure.
If there's any hope of getting him healthy, to me that's a gamble you take every day.
I agree, as long as they knew his other foot needed the procedure a week after the draft, and I just find the timing kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nicki. Always appreciate your time.
Of course. Thanks, guys.